Right, we're back at it for another episode with the track bike build, and this one's going to be a little bit, nope. So we're back at it with the track bike build, and those of you with eyes will see there's no front end on. Now, unfortunately, I did try filming it. We've got the forks down here. They're going to go for having fork seals done. And I'm going to use a gent who is also going to teach me how to do fork seals, which sort of future-proofs it for me, which is lovely. Now, currently on Ireland, we are getting 60 to 70 mile an hour winds. So I tried filming that this morning and it just sounded shite. So that's off. But there's nothing really to it. Get the stands on, pull the wheel, pull the brakes, pull the forks. It's just unbolting things. Now, what we are going to do now is a small little detail that is pretty important. The exhaust is currently held with pillion pegs. Now the pillion pegs are going to go away and I need to hold the exhaust. Now unfortunately, a little complication, because this used to have the slash cut on, I lost the bracket for the exhaust. So I have this one that was on an OE exhaust, which is far too big. So we'll have to modify that, make it fit down. Obviously take the tail off, take the pillion pegs off, and then make a bracket that fits in between them. I could go and buy one, but I don't see the point. So we'll get on with that. There's something else that'll have to be dealt with in the future. The seat. On the normal bike, you take off the pillion seat and then unbolt what holds down the seat. So obviously we can't do that, so we're going to have to change it round a little bit. I think we'll permanently bolt the seat down, and then you have to take the tail completely off to get it on. We'll cross that boat fairly soon. There's a few extra little bits that need to be changed on the main fairings that go on. The coolant overflow bottle, it fouls, but it has to be changed anyway so that it doesn't, or has no potential to leak out from the track. And I think we're going to lose most of this because we don't need it, it's just in the way. Relocate the electrics. But again, that's one for another day. So we'll unbolt the pillion pegs, that one just comes off, so does this one, weirdly enough, and we'll take some measurements. So this is the part we need to delete, and to do that is going to be fairly simple. There's a couple of measurements we need to take. We need to know the distance between the mounting holes, because they won't change on the bike, so we have to make sure that the bit that's made mounts up nicely, and the depth of sort of distance from this line out to where it reaches out to the can. Now, I think we're going to get a plate of aluminium, nothing too thick, it doesn't need to do much, and the load bearing's going to be in that direction, not wobbling sideways. And we'll just do 2 folds, bring it out on a nice taper, take off any of the sharp edges, and probably mirror polish it because I can. Then once that's done, I'll clean up both of these. I've already got someone that wants to buy them, so we'll get rid of the corrosion, probably paint them, and that'll be a £10 off the overall cost of the bike. Now, something I'm going to do at the end of this episode, and subsequently everyone with this track bike build, is keep the tally going, so where we've gone, where we've managed to save money, where we've made money back, or what parts have cost. So we'll go find a bit of material. So it's always handy to keep offcuts from any jobs you do. I've got all sorts here, some meshy bits, odd bits of wood, but I think it's come down to these two. Now this is 2mm stainless, not sure what it's from. There's another piece of it, however that's grown. Or this, which I think is a brass. Now, as much as I'd love to do the brass and polish it up and have it nice and shiny and gold, I just don't think it will fit. So we'll go with the slightly thinner stainless. There's plenty of room on there to make the part, follow it down, even with the folds, and sort of go that way, bring it down that way, bring it down there. It's going to be close, but I think it's going to work. Okay, so I cannot for the life of me find a rule, a vernier, or a tape measure anywhere. No idea where they've gone. What I have got is some wire. Now obviously the general just height of this part, if we measure that and cut the material to there, when we get these folds in, it's going to come up short. So I'll do the crudest possible, follow down, bend it to the rough shape, follow it down to the lowest point, and we'll go from there. So now we'll straighten that out, and it's gonna be close. It's right on the length, so we don't have to trim that down here. Now obviously you're going to be making most of the cuts down the bottom to bring in the taper, so I think we'll have these nice edges at the top, and they're still going to need some finessing at the end, but it'll do. So we will get some markings on it. Right, so because the mounting holes at the top, they can't be close, they have to be bang on, what I've done is pop them over and centre punch the holes. You can see down in there, so I know that they are the centres within 1/2 mil or so to these. Now the overall width, I know the length is going to be about right, but it looks like the width is going to be close as well, which makes it fairly easy. Obviously once we've got the length of the bracket and we know the width, it's just a case of making the whole point taper down to the mounting hole down at the bottom and seeing how we can connect that onto this thing. Now this has come off a stock can which was huge, and obviously the Yoshi is a little bit smaller, so we'll have to straighten this out a bit, get rid of these old rivets, and then likely have to move this hole down somewhere so that it closes in far tighter. Well, let's not listen to the sound of a grinder. So what we'll do is cut the two sides down to get the taper starting to take shape, and then drill the 2 holes for the mounting point before we go on to folding it, and then likely have to change the tapers again just to sort of see how it looks. At the minute, until we get the folds in, it's hard to see the final shape. It might look a bit funny, so we'll cut the sides, drill the holes, fold it, and then likely go back and cut the sides again. Quick double check that the holes line up. So we're pretty good there. Yeah, with some nasty burrs on the back, but we can deal with them shortly. To get a nice fold, what I'm going to do is go back into the vise with the wood and use the flat edge. Actually, I might use the vise. Use the flat edge of the vise and then just gently tap it back with a hammer, and I'm going to make sure I keep everything parallel with the 2 lines, so that it doesn't look wonky and weird. So I use the pillion peg as a measurement for where the first fold will be. So we know we've got to go down roughly this distance. And we'll just mark that across, and then attempt to match that angle. So we've got the piece on. It's sort of looking roughly where the shape is. Bit crude, but that's fine at this stage. Now we're actually a little bit over on the length, so I had to bring that up, which has meant the bottom's quite fat. So as I thought would be the case, we'll bring this edge right down and slimline it out a bit. Now we're going to make this fit the Yoshi can. At the minute, as you can see, it's just massive. So I'm going to stick a rag around there so I don't mash it up too much, and we'll just sort of try and bend this round and get it to fit the can a little bit. Now the stock one that it came off was pretty much perfectly circular, absolutely horrible looking thing. and this is a little bit more oval, so I'll have to change the profile and just see if we can get it to sit right. We're going to be somewhere in there. She's not there. And I think we're about there. So we now know that we've got to move this hole just down. You can see that one there. So we need a new hole to go in, and that will match up with the bottom of that. Right, so that's that down, drilled on the sides. I had to bend it back open to drill it, obviously, because why wouldn't I? The pillar can't get down. I suppose I could have used another drill, but F it. So that's sort of in shape now and fits snugly around the can. And I'll just need to, well, I bolted this together to stop it moving, so I can just need to chop this excess bit off and make it sort of look nice. And obviously where I cut that and where the rivets and stuff have gone, we've got bare metal, so we'll give it a bit of paint as well to stop it corroding. Okay, so we're starting to get there now. A couple of little bits I want to mark out, and obviously there needs to be the hole to go through there, so we'll mark that. And I also think where it lines up, I'm going to change the profile of this back edge so that it follows the vertical of the black strip and just ties in nicely with it. And also at the top here, going to bring these, put a little radius on just to tidy it a bit, but I think I'm going to make them much bigger to sort of curve around the bolt. And also take it off this weld because it just kind of sits up on there, and not a fan. So we'll bigger radius on them and put the hole in the bottom and have that vertical line. Well, let's not listen to the belt sander either. So what I'm doing here is just sort of bringing the radius round and changing that profile down the bottom, and sort of trying to look at the general overall shape and see if anything sort of sticks out or looks a bit odd, and smooth that round. Now once I've sort of got the shape fine and I'm fairly happy with it, I'll just double check over all of the edges and make sure we've got no burrs and they're not particularly sharp. Obviously only a couple of mil thick, it's very easy to effectively have a knife edge on there. So just smooth them all down, check it with my fingers, check it with my eyeball, and get it all smooth and looking a bit more, or a bit less junky. Okay, so I've got it on there. It's nice and firm, good and snug. I'm undecided at the minute whether to paint it or not. I don't know, because there's a few more polished bits. Someone's gone through the effort of doing the frame. Obviously can's all shiny, but I don't know whether to paint it or not yet, so I'll probably leave it, and if I decide otherwise, then we'll fix it up. So that's one thing down, and it cost us -10 because I've actually sold the pegs that came off, had that lying around, I've just chopped stuff. So that's one more thing down, and next up I think we'll start looking at relocating the electrics from the tail and trimming down some of the subframe, because this section at least is completely unnecessary and doesn't change any of the strength on it. And as you saw before, trying to get the tailpiece off is a bit of a pain, so we'll deal with that and see how it goes. We've got to get a windscreen onto the front bit. Now I've got the fixings upstairs, screens over in the corner, and the main plastics to get them back on. Not plastics, fairings, whatever you call them, fiberglass. We've got to relocate the coolant overflow, which was sat down there, but it fouls, so we'll go and move that somewhere.